basically, one thing I want to really talk about is what the governor really talks about is bringing more money to education. And he's got tons of strategies around how to do that. And he has pushed tremendous reform in the last 2 sessions. But he's also letting us know that he needs to get more resources towards education. And he's got specific ways of going about that, which if you're interested in, I can mention as we get into questions and answers, because I want to get to achievement compacts. He's also talking about as a concept that funding is funding to outcomes. And I think most of you have gotten to look at the achievement compacts, whereas you receive funding currently based on students, the amount of students enrolled. This shifts to how many of your Oregon students have received bachelor's degrees, and that's just one measure and stuff. So it's really a shift towards outcomes. And it's also saying that the budget will have some money they just give to us, the amounts they do, and hopefully more. Some money they'll gear towards those outcomes, and then some innovation funds are another part of what they're thinking about. And I think Lorraine talked about a lot of the other things. I'd like to just start. Oh, I would say about the seamless system of 0 to 20, one of the powers I see in it, and it starts at the K-5. Right now, there's not there's $800 million in K-5. There's no outcomes like they come to kindergarten ready to learn on some measure we can all agree upon. And if that does happen, then we think we can deliver having kids reading at grade level at 3rd grade. We'll be more successful of having kids career and college ready when they graduate from high school. And one of our outcomes is that students will have 12 plus credits of college credits as they move into higher ed. Now, I did with the Senate faculty hear comments about we have some courses like some of our College Now classes or AP classes where maybe the kids come and we're saying they're ready, but when they get to you, they don't feel ready. That was a comment. Or they don't have the skill set you would want. And I think the power between the 0 to 20 seamless is to really get clear about those transitions so we can make sure that we're delivering kids with the skills they really need to go in the classes and be successful. So it's a big system shift, but I think it has a lot of possibilities. I think now what I wanted to just say, I think I want Mary to talk about the compacts, because what's confusing is there's one compact with the OUS system, but there's also individually you have compacts, and that's what Lorraine was talking about, and some questions came with the Senate that there was a committee here working on that, and what about that? So you get to decide matrix, you have a compact, but there's also one with the state, and I'd like us to spend most of our time here because this is a good time to get input from you so we can take it back to the OEIB and that. So Mary, can I give it to you?
Sure. Thanks, Nancy. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm president of Lane Community College on the Oregon Education Investment Board, and I'm chairing the subcommittee on achievement compacts. And can I just kind of put my stuff there? So let me just tell you a little bit about the process and where we are in that process. You probably all know that this is moving really, really, really fast. We were confirmed to the investment board in November and had to get ready for the legislative session, which has just been completed. So the legislation around achievement compacts is in Senate Bill 1581. And so to get the legislative detail, I would, refer you to that. Sections 14 to 18 are the important sections in that bill. It tells you what an achievement compact should include. It calls for achievement compacts to be developed and signed off between the Oregon Education Investment Board and every school district, every community college, the university system, and each university. And I do have to say that because that language is in there with the system and with each university, I think we have to define exactly what that means. It may have been put in there because there's the potential of institutional boards down the road. And I would just say there really is only going to be one compact with each institution. However, each institution can add priorities, local priorities for that institution to the system, the OUS system achievement compact. But I think there's an expectation that only one will be signed between the president of the University of Oregon and the Oregon Education Investment Board. So in terms of how the template for OUS was developed, probably somebody from the Chancellor's office would answer that better than I. But in K-12, there was already a lot of prescription because of No Child Left Behind. And so in K-12, they already had school improvement committees. They had structures within each school district to talk about outcomes and things like No Child Left Behind. In higher ed, it's a little bit different. We've got very different structures. I mean, your structure might be different from OSU's, certainly different from community colleges. So in the bill, there was an effort made not to prescribe specifically how individual universities, individual community colleges would inform what a compact looked like. And I actually think that's a good thing. So rather than saying you will have a committee or it will be a certain group, it's kind of giving us a certain amount of flexibility about how we engage with this. The OUS Chancellor's Office has been doing quite a bit of work in this arena for a while, and that was due to the fact that in Senate Bill 242, which separated the OUS system from being a state agency to being a public university system, so to get out of some of the strictures that the state puts on the university, in return for that freedom was going to require performance compacts. So that work, I think, has been going on in the university system for a couple of years, getting ready for Senate Bill 242, which passed in the legislative session last year. At the same time in the OUS system, there's been quite a bit of work going on mission alignment. So U of O is different from Eastern Oregon, it's different from Southern Oregon, and there's been quite a bit of work apparently going on in that. So when the idea of the achievement compacts came up in October or November last year, I think what the Chancellor's Office did was build on the work that had already been done around performance compacts, and then engaged with provosts from the universities and developed a template for the university system compact, which was reviewed by the State Board of Higher Education last Friday and forwarded to the Oregon Education Investment Board subcommittee last Friday afternoon. So you can see how fast this is moving. I'm sure, I assume that Lorraine talked to you a little bit about your internal process and how you've engaged with that. And again, if there are questions about that, Lorraine would be a better person to answer those than I. Just to show how this is different in each system. In community colleges, of course, we're 17 independent community colleges governed by 7-member elected boards. We don't have a system. So to develop the template, we had a subcommittee of presidents and chief academic officers really get together just to get our heads around what this really meant, what it meant in the short term, what it meant in the long term, and developed a template which has actually changed pretty substantially in the last couple of weeks. And then in individual colleges, we had faculty engagement according to whatever internal structures we had. So for us, it's our learning council, where we have faculty, student, administrative representation. So we had a pretty robust internal conversation that we think actually has informed what the state will end up with as an achievement compact. So the system for review is that the OEIB appointed a subcommittee, which, as I mentioned, I chair. It's a very small committee. Myself, Matt Donegan, who's the chair of the State Board of Higher Education, an investment board member, and David Reeves, who's a community college faculty member. And then, of course, we have support from the Commissioner of Community Colleges, the Chancellor, and so forth, and a pretty large audience of folks, faculty, union leaders from faculty organizations that show up at the meetings and inform us. So what you will see, maybe have seen, is a template that shows the OUS measurements, so like number of bachelor's degrees and so forth, as well as what the University of Oregon deems important to be in an achievement compact. So that's the document that we're working with right now. But the investment board subcommittee did have some questions last week that the Chancellor's office is discussing and using whatever process that office uses to connect with the individual universities. So just a couple of issues that have come up. I think the first thing is it's very important to understand that this is very evolutionary. So the compact that we have for next year, for 2012-13, is probably not going to be the compact going forward. We're going to get some experience with it, we're going to figure out what works, and then there will be some kind of engagement to improve it, change it as we go forward. So I see this really as a pilot year. I don't see it as a done deal. I mean, it's a done deal for next year once we approve it, but it's not saying that this is going to be the achievement compact forevermore. And in fact, in the bill, it allows for faculty groups, student groups, unions to come forward by, I think it's by September 15th, with ideas both on the process of the development of the achievement compacts and on content. So I know there hasn't been much time for engagement on the front end of next year, but it is in the bill that will happen and happen by September. So, you know, I would encourage you to engage in those conversations. The other big issue is to do with the different sections of the Achievement Compact. It's divided into 3 sections: completion, quality, and connections. And there is a lot of concern about the quality section because there's a national discussion going on about quality that many faculty are engaged with. And to put kind of quantitative measures on quality when we haven't really defined, well, what does having a bachelor's degree really mean, and what do students know, you know, kind of the essential learning outcomes conversation is still underway. And so to start putting measurements on that is of deep concern, at least to the faculty that I've taught to. So, for example, in the community college compact, we've taken out the quality section. It's not to say that the university should do that. And it's not to say we shouldn't be paying attention to quality. Of course we should. But that should be a conversation.
It's up there if that's helpful.
Okay. So, yeah, so you can see the 3 sections: completion, quality, and connections. And if you can see the quality metrics that OUS has put in is alumni satisfaction, employer satisfaction, and then the number of graduates that are unemployed compared with the percentage of workforce employed. I don't think those are quality measures personally. And so we had the same kind of metrics. We took them out in community colleges. And I think there is some discussion about that happening with the OUS. We'll see on Friday when we go back to our subcommittee meeting. So those are kind of 2 of the issues, the evolutionary nature and the quality that have already come to the surface. And both of these issues are receiving, particularly the quality issue, receiving quite a bit of attention. So I'm going to stop there and I guess open it up for questions, concerns, feedback, comments that we can take back in as we try to move this forward in the next few weeks.
One thing the executive committee was wondering is where can you give input ahead of time to kind of influence the compact? And you did hear there's another meeting on Friday, right? So this would be great if there's input, and I will share with Mary the input I got from the executive committee. I don't know if it would be helpful for someone who was there to just summarize kind of what you heard there, but we definitely can get the input there. And just to be clear, because we didn't spend much time on this, we just talked about one of the measures, which is the bachelor's. The blue is at this point what's required, and the white would be what your university could add in there. So if you're the blue, though, would be the whole system is responsible for the blue.
We have a microphone on this side, and also a roving microphone, so whatever you would like. And just to say that the Senate Executive Committee is preparing a summary of those remarks that were made today, which we'll make sure that Nancy gets by, well, we'll try to have them, I guess, by maybe Thursday evening. You would probably like them.
I think the best place to take that is to the subcommittee.
Great. We'll make sure that you get them.
Yeah.
Great. I'll send it to both of you. That's great.
This is the recommendation from the subcommittee is supposed to go to the investment board next Tuesday. I've actually asked that, not for K-12 because I think they're ready to go, but that we maybe just do a first reading on Tuesday and buy a couple of weeks until the meeting at the end of March before the investment board actually finalizes the compact. That might give us a little bit of time to get other thinking on the table. But I don't know if my request will be fulfilled or not.
When is the meeting at the end of March?
There's the next OEIB full board meeting is on Tuesday the 13th, and then there is another one 2 weeks later. I think it's the 27th.
And
that's full again.
And that will be the finalization.
And that will be, well, it's scheduled for finalization on Tuesday. I'm trying to buy some time to get a little more input because, I mean, at community college faculty are talking about this, you're talking about this, and to get it done and a recommendation by Friday, I think is a little problematic. So what I've suggested is we see where we are on Tuesday. We present it to the OEIB, but not almost like a first reading, and that allows us a little bit of time to finalize it 2 weeks later. But we'll see if that happens or not. I'm working for it.
So if we were to give testimony, we spoke in the Senate Executive Committee about the possibility of giving live testimony in addition to submitting a written statement. If we were to do that, really the 13th is what we should aim for because we don't know about the 27th yet.
Right. I would aim for the subcommittee meeting on Friday. Now, what is true is the public comment is at the end of the meeting, but I would send your stuff to the members of the committee now, I mean, as soon as you have it done before the meeting, so that we can take it up.
Yes.
And then I would suggest that you also, in public comment, kind of reinforce your comments. That's if I were sitting in your shoes, that's what I do.
So on Friday, the meeting will be where and
it's
at what
in
time?
Salem. It's at the State Library, and I can send you the
Great.
details of the meeting. It's,
Great.
I think it's 3 to 5. It's the afternoon, I believe.
Great. Well, we'll have the summary to both of you, and we will testify then on Friday. We'll make sure that
great.
happens. Thank you so much.
Rob, I just, since you asked, I wanted to summarize a couple of the points from the Senate Exec and then invite people either immediately with questions now or to get back to the Senate Exec with your questions and concerns. But I think, first of all, I want to thank you both for coming. I really appreciate it. The three issues I think we focused on were, number one, it's important to us to have an achievement compact tailored to our individual campus, and that's whether or not we end up getting an independent board. Obviously, if we do, then that question is off the table. I think I heard you say, Professor Spilde, that's what you're assuming in any case, that UO president will sign the achievement compact with the OEIB. But I wanted to signal that was our concern as well.
Okay, so just to clarify, for this year, for this coming year, the OUS metrics will be included in whatever is signed by the university president.
Okay, great.
It's not going to be just for the U of O this year. Now, in going forward, as the governance potentially changes, then I don't think you would be bound by a system achievement compact. It would be your own achievement compact.
Okay.
But I think at least for this coming year, the OUS system metrics are going to be in there.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to know. Thanks for the clarification. The second point was that many people pointed out there had been a committee on this campus to come up with a very different set of accountability metrics, and we'd like to see somehow that hard work factored into any future achievement compact we get, whatever form it takes. And the third, I think, goes directly to the issue that you raised, which a lot of these things are hard to measure, and we very much don't want in higher education. I think one of our colleagues said we want to measure what we value and not value what we measure. And a lot of the things that you can indeed quantify at the K-12 level, I don't know, SAT scores, things like that, are much harder to do. And there's a risk that we will insert a kind of accountability culture that leads us to focus on things, maybe even diminish our standards. For example, to meet a certain criteria number of bachelor's degrees produced. And we don't want to end up in a situation like that. So again, if there's a way we can communicate those concerns to you both ASAP and as the discussion unfolds, please let us know how to do that. Thanks.
Well, I mean, I totally agree about, standards. I mean, just in my community college world, the easiest way for us to have more degrees is to either lower quality or raise our entry standards, because we are open door. I mean, we could start just creaming the very best students off the top, and we'll do a better job of completion. But that's not really our mission, and that's not really, we don't want to be driven by degree completion and say to a whole group of students, well, sorry, you don't get in anymore, because that's not our mission. Different for the university, of course. So there's a lot of conversation going on about how do we, for us, do a better job of graduation and degree completion, but not either thin the soup and make it meaningless or keep out a whole bunch of students that we were created to serve. So I think those discussions are certainly going on among community college faculty and staff, and I think they're very important to raise.
We'll make sure to have the summary statement. I'll make sure that you get that, including the points that Ian brings up. There were others as well, of course. And in addition, I'll come to Salem on Friday and make sure that you hear from us individually, personally. Okay, thank you so much.
Anything else? Is that it? Okay, you know where to find both of us, right, if you need us? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate everything that you're doing. We know that this is a huge effort, takes so much time and energy, and we're very grateful for your contribution. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is new business, and if you'll see, 4.1 is a request by the Oregon Daily Emerald Board of Directors, and this is a request that the board no longer be part of the Senate committee structure. And I'll just read a note that is recounting a conversation that Chris Prosser, our Senate Executive Coordinator, had with Melody Leslie, who sits on the board, and made the request. I'll just read this email. The Emerald Board of Directors, a committee listed on the committee site, has asked to be removed. I spoke with Melody Leslie, who sits on the board, and she stated that the board is and has been a private company that is not directly affiliated with the university. I checked their membership, and it says that the president appoints 2 members, 1 faculty and 1 staff, to the board, but the board nominates these members, not the committee on committees. So we've had discussions with all of those who have been involved and looked into the history of this, and it makes good sense that, in fact, we remove this, since it doesn't really have a direct connection to what we're doing and to the Senate itself. Does anybody wish to add any points? Do you know about this situation or any discussion before I ask for a motion to be made? Would someone be willing to make a motion, please? That the Oregon Daily Emerald Board of Directors be removed from the Senate committee structure, yes? No, you could say as stated. May I hear a second, please? Second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Abstain. Thank you. So moved. I'll be in touch with Melody Leslie and the board on that matter. Then the next point is the winter curriculum report, and presenting that will be Paul Engelking, the chair of the Committee on Courses. As you know, Paul is a regular at this podium. He's been doing this for a long time, and we're very grateful to him for his contribution over many years. He says he's a glutton for punishment. Let's give him a round of applause just to thank him.
there are some corrections to the report that I'd like to, if I can find the magic stick here. Here it is. Yeah. If this is one of those computers with a port. So while we're waiting, I can just mention that we've had some more administrative help in trying to process the reports and get things done on time. And I think we've hit, let's see, it should be, let's go to UOCC. And then it's corrections at the very top. And this time, we only had one typo in the report itself. The rest of these corrections were made on the part of ourselves, trying to put the whole report together. But there was only one typing error in the whole report. So I think we should thank staff very much for this. And that is highlighted in yellow here. There was one misspelling. The other corrections to this are some administrative corrections to some AAA courses, changing the effective date to next term. Then in finance, that is also a change of prerequisites. German and Scandinavian courses here, these were approved. There was some negotiation with the Inter-College General Education Requirements Committee that reviewed these courses, and SCAN 317 was deemed not to satisfy a general education requirement. And so these have been corrected to represent that late action. Human physiology, it's a change of credits. Music, would like to have an earlier effective term, and there were prereqs in public planning, 3 p.m., let me say it that way. And we delete the action on the pending group status of SCAN 317. So these are the corrections we'd like to enter in. Are there any corrections from the floor? Otherwise, we so move that the curriculum report as corrected be approved by the Senate. Okay. So do you want to handle the vote, or should I?
All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Abstain. So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. We really appreciate it.
Here, I'll give you back.
Thank you. Great. And the next item, 4.3, is the retirement and emeriti policy. And the committee has asked that we postpone this item until the April 11th Senate meeting. And thus we will honor the committee's request, and it will be brought before the Senate at that time. 4.4 is the research misconduct policy. And Beth Stormshack, the Associate Vice President of Research, will present the policy, and then we'll have discussion and a move to approve. This policy was on the website, as you know, and was also distributed to you via a link, so I'm sure you've seen it. Please welcome Beth.
Okay, this policy supports the research integrity of our university, A variety of federal regulations address research misconduct, and this policy is required by federal agencies in order for us to receive research funds, as you all know. This policy has quite a history. It's been here before. In October 2009, there was a work group formed to revise the policy, and Senate members were part of that work group. The policy was reviewed by the General Counsel at that time and endorsed by the Science Council and the Faculty Advisory Committee in spring of 2010. Then it went to the Executive Leadership Council in December of 2010 and back to the General Counsel for additional changes. I believe it came through the Senate, and there was some discussion at that point too, and then it went back for changes there. And then it was reviewed by ELT again in April of 2011 and by the work group again. And most recently this week, it was reviewed by the Science Council again and approved by that council. And now it is finally back in front of the Senate for approval today. So that's basically the history of it.
Would anybody like to make a comment, or is there any point of discussion? Is everybody, yes?
There were really no significant changes. The biggest change from all the iterations was to just make sure that the policy avoided the application of the open meetings law, so that because research misconduct is a confidential matter until the final outcome, so now the policy ensures the confidentiality of the process.
Yes, I should say that in our new policy on policies, obviously intimately connected to the new Constitution, the policies go through a flow chart, which you've all seen. That's available on the Senate website, as you know. And eventually, a new policy, or even an old policy that's being reconsidered, will reach the Provost's office. The Provost will sign the policy, as Lorraine did, after consulting with ELT, of course. Then she signs it, and then it goes to the Senate President. The Senate President takes it to the Senate Executive Committee. We have a discussion about it, how it needs to go forward. In this case, we decided it needed to go to the Science Council for one more pass, because the research of those members of the Science Council and everyone they represent is impacted greatly by this policy. So having received within the last few days the approval of the Science Council, we are very confident that all the issues have been dealt with. All the T's have been crossed and the I's dotted. Any questions or points of discussion? Shall we call for a vote? Are we ready? Yes. Do I hear a motion to approve the policy? Second? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. And abstain? Bravo, we have just passed our first policy under the new policy on policies. Let's have a round of applause for Beth and for the policy. Bravo. And now Beth will tell us a bit about the classified research policy, which we won't be considering today, but she'll give us a little bit of the history and how it will be appearing in April.
Yeah, we're going to delay discussion of the classified research policy today. There have been some concerns that the classified research policy doesn't address some of the issues in the form policy, which was drafted in 1967. And we've heard some of those faculty concerns. And so based on our discussions with faculty and some of the information we received, we're going to be working on developing a companion policy to this policy that deals with some of the issues related to proprietary research. And then we're going to bring those policies back before the Senate together so that we can discuss them fully later this spring.
Great, and I should say that this is also today these two items and also the first item as well, the Emeriti policy. This is an example of how policy making, good policy making works. This openness, this discussion, this making sure we get it right, making sure everybody is involved, that there's collaboration and consultation at all levels. So I'm thrilled that these three items are going this way and that we're making sure it's right and that we've passed one of them. So I'm sure that in April, the two that we've just mentioned that are on the agenda today, that those will go through. There's a great likelihood that that will happen. And we will add to those the academic freedom and freedom of speech policy, the facilities use policy. These have both been before the Senate before. There are new suggested changes, and they're ready to be looked at us by us. We will look at them again after they've gone through the committee once more, to put it briefly. And then finally, the legal services policy, which will take a bit more time. That we probably won't see that until May. But we're moving along swiftly, and I think the policy on policies is working very well in everyone's favor. I saw a question.
Existing problem. What we're considering is an amendment to an existing problem, to an existing policy. Is that correct?
You know, how that will work out in terms of the structural aspect is what we're looking at, taking the policy and adding something that has been raised as a question. So it is, in a sense, an amendment, or it could also be looked at as a development of the policy. Either way, and that's in the policy on policies, that's accounted for in the procedure and how it has to move through the system.
Yeah, I'm concerned about procedurally opening up a can of worms here that for an entire policy, when actually the intent was just to have a revision of a policy.
Well, we can do minor and major revisions, and this falls within those rubrics. There's no problem with it. It's not as though the policy is being changed in such a way that it would need to be somehow scrapped and start over again. It's not that at all. But
so if somebody did have in mind a major revision, they might want to try a different starting the policy.
Well, given all of
the process again.
Yes, given all of the various aspects of the policy on policies, we've made the most direct and the most, let's say, complete assessment of what we need to do. And
I just wanted to be clear what would the scope of this body's discussion and consideration was going to be. Yeah, whether it was going to be the revision of the policy or the entire policy.
It will be,
because those are two different things.
Yeah, Beth will bring the policy back to us. Actually, it will go through a variety of steps, eventually go to the Provost. The Provost will sign it. It will be given to me, then to the Senate exec, and then it will come to the Senate. So just as in the policy on policies. Frank.
The 1967 policy prohibited all, quote, secret research on campus, that is, federally classified research or proprietary research, the results of which are owned by a company and are not freely communicable. The policy that was brought forth from Johnson Hall, essentially, was to replace that 1967 policy in total, and was written in such a way that only federally classified research was addressed. And therefore, substituting the old policy for the one that was to have been brought to us would have left unaddressed the question of proprietary research, and therefore, by implication, the university would no longer have a policy regarding research conducted secretly, where the students couldn't talk with each other and the professors couldn't discuss what they were doing. That failing of the new policy was recognized, and it was brought to the attention of Beth and her predecessor. And the solution that has been worked out is that Beth will develop a policy for proprietary research that will be brought in parallel at the same time as the one on federally classified research. Their office chose to do it that way because they felt they could deal better with the language, which has apparently become very technical because of the feds rewriting Webster and giving new definitions to the good old words like classified, so that it now means only what the feds want it to mean, and it doesn't help to look in Webster. So these things had to be rewritten. So the two policies will come as a pair, and the Senate will be able to act on both of them. I would be dismayed if they acted positively on one and negatively on the other. I would hope this university would continue to adhere to the policy which it has held forever and has been upheld, as far as I know, by all presidents, that we don't do secret in the generic sense of the word, research on this campus.
Yeah, and also we can have the discussion, and it's up to the office, the owner of the policy, whether that parallel is two different policies or an A-B structure within a single unit of a policy. That's something that needs to be decided at the policy-making level, and it's not really the Senate's business. We will be presented with that policy. Well, yeah, we will discuss that as the policy is in evolution. That's how the policy on policies works. So it comes to us after the provost has signed it, and we can. Yeah. Well, that I have to wait for the office to tell us how they're going to bring it back to us. I can't. I don't have the authority to say that. I would gladly give you an answer, but I don't make the policy. I'm not the policy owner, nor do I make it. You see, nor does the Senate. We don't own the policy, nor do we make it. We approve it once it's given to us through the policy on policies, which is available for all to look at and review. If anybody has a question about this, by all means, write to me, and we'll be glad to clarify it. And please, Randy, I'm more than happy to go through that with you. No problem at all. Frank, did you want to say anything more? I just broke in there to mention that it could be done in different ways based on the policy owner's intent. Yeah. Great. So, yeah, there are a variety of ways to do that. Thank you. So what I'd like to do now, let's move to the reports section, and I'll just make a comment referring back to Nancy Golden and Mary Spilde, what they were talking about with us, and about what will happen during the rest of the week, that we'll be writing a statement that will be given in prose form via email to Mary and Nancy. I will circulate that to the Senate. I just want you to know that you'll all get a copy of that, be able to review that. But I'd also like to offer anyone the opportunity to write to me and make suggestions if you have ideas related to what Nancy and Mary were discussing with us. I'd be thrilled to receive any ideas you might have, any input that you might like to give. I'll be finishing that up somewhere at the end of, let's say, Thursday afternoon, and trying to get it to them in the early evening. And then on Friday, I will go and present it in Salem, and there may be some commentary added to that as well, as the week evolves. This is a very short timeline. We only found out about it today, but we'll do our best, and I think we have something to offer to the subcommittee. So please, you're more than welcome to write to me about that. Now let's move to the reports, and the first report on the agenda is the ASUO report. Ben Eckstein, the ASUO president.
Thank you, Rob. So I have a few big updates from the ASUO. So I'll start, first of all, with the issue of DPS and the implementation of a campus police force. So students are deeply concerned right now with the process of implementing a police force on our campus. And there are two main issues at this point that students are advocating on that are very important. One is that we cannot actually have a campus police force until an oversight mechanism is developed on campus. And the process for developing an oversight mechanism has been taking place over the course of the last year and still has not been resolved. There is no oversight mechanism for a campus police force, and conversations between stakeholder groups, including students, faculty, and staff, have stopped on that issue. And so we're working very closely to ensure that we do have a strong oversight process for a campus police force, and that students and faculty and staff need to be included in that process because that hasn't happened sufficiently to date. The second issue is just continuing to advocate for a weapons-free campus. So students supported the OUS policy on firearms that applies to students and faculty and staff and visitors. And in my testimony to the State Board in support of that policy, I also said on behalf of students that we hope that that approach, that weapons-free approach to our campus, be continued in all policies affecting the campus, including DPS and the issue of a campus police force. And we strongly believe that we should not have armed police officers housed on our campus with guns and tasers. Another issue that we've worked on is the assessment rate that units on campus are charged as part of being a unit at the university. The ASUO, it came to our attention, has been overcharged this year by 1% on our assessment rate. And for the ASUO, that amounts to more than $130,000 in student fee dollars. And so we're currently working to see to it that the $130,000 in overage on our assessment rate is returned to students, and that we actually pay the rate we were supposed to pay, especially given that units like the athletic department already pay a significantly reduced rate, and that we believe that students shouldn't have to pay more than the rate that we agreed to, especially at a time when other units on campus are paying less and getting away with it. So we want to make sure that the dollars that were supposed to be with students stay with students, and a $130,000 overage is pretty significant overcharge on our assessment rate. We also are completing our budget season, and that has also meant that we've continued to negotiate with the athletic department on the agreement between the ASUO and the athletic department for student tickets. At this time, we were able successfully to negotiate for a 0 increase in the amount of money that the ASUO pays the athletic department for football and basketball tickets. That agreement has not been finalized because the athletic department would like a commitment to an 8% increase next year in what the ASUO pays. But that level of increase would amount to more than $100,000, and we're not able and willing to commit to that kind of an increase next year, and have said that we are willing to commit to some level of increase, but believe that it should be reasonable and based on the amount of tickets we receive and not just a blanket 8% commitment. So we're working out the terms of that agreement, but thankfully, because we were able to pass a budget with a $0 increase for the athletic department, we were able to invest the $100,000 to $200,000 that we saved because of that in student programs, clubs, and organizations, and student services. And we feel that that's a better use of those funds than a large increase to the agreement that we have with the athletic department. And then another issue that we continue to work on, of course, is the EMU SRC projects that are being proposed. And as I mentioned in my last update, those were voted down by students, said that they did not want those projects to move forward with the proposed fee. And so at this time, we've continued to work to see how we can have a quality project at some point in the future, but make sure that it's affordable and that it prioritizes student needs, that spaces in a building for student clubs and organizations, spaces where students can study, meeting spaces for students in the campus community are the priorities of that project rather than other kinds of spaces. And so we are working on making sure that that happens, and also strongly advocating for a reduced fee. The proposed fee was $100 per term per student, and that's also at a time when we're coming on the heels of a 7% tuition increase, or sorry, more than 7%, and looking again next year at 5 to 7% tuition increases. And so we believe that the fee is too high and would like to work with our administrators to get a more affordable financing model for the projects. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet, and we haven't seen proposals of lower fees at this time, but we continue to advocate that $100 per term is too much. Students said that it was too much when they were offered the opportunity to vote on those fees, and we think that we really need to work to bring those fees down and that we can have a quality project that serves student needs and also at the same time have it be affordable and something that won't break the bank for students who are already struggling to be here on campus. So those are the main issues that I wanted to update you on, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. And I must say that Ben works overtime in a way that I've seen few leaders, either students or faculty or anyone on the campus, do in my 21 years here. And I just want to acknowledge that he's tireless And we should all thank him. You can see by his report he's on top of all these issues, and they're very important ones. And I'm just thrilled that, as in the last 2 years, during Nathan Tublitz's presidency and during this year, we've made such strides for working better together with ASUO and University Senate. And we have some possible motions that are in the works, and I'm hoping that those will go through by the end of the year. So let's give a hand for all of the student activity and commitment to these issues. Thanks so much. So the last item on the agenda is the IFS Interinstitutional Faculty Senate, and I'll give a very, very brief report. I went to my first meeting of the IFS. I was the designee for Nathan Tublitz, who is the IFS senator, as you know, the third of our three. The first two are Peter Gilkey and Daejing Do, and both of them were there. Daejing was able to go for one of the 2 days, Peter Gilkey for both days, and I was there for both days of the meeting, which is in Portland at PSU, and it usually rotates among the campuses, but this meeting now in March and then the one in June will be at PSU. And probably the most significant item to be moved through the meeting and voted on was that the IFS, the senators that are, as you know, elected through each of their individual senates, it's from senators, IFS senators from each campus. Those senators voted unanimously to have a meeting in June that will be conjoined with the OUS Leadership Caucus. And what that is the actual senates of each campus, their leadership meeting in conjunction with the IFS senators. This is a big step forward because it will mean that the actual governance of each campus will be in the limelight within the IFS structure, which hasn't always happened in the past. There hasn't been the strongest communication between governance and the IFS structure, which is more of an OUS institution. So that was a very hopeful thing to come out of that meeting. And I'd like to thank my colleague Nathan Tublitz for organizing the OUS Leadership Caucus. He has put this together over the last 2 years. We'll be having a meeting this Friday where we'll be joined, our Senate leadership, by the Senate leaderships from the other campuses. And this is a huge step forward in making a more productive relationship between our various institutions, not only at the level of governance, but then between us in a way that will allow us to collaborate on many projects in the future. And I see this as a very hopeful step, not only for each campus, but for the system as a whole. And it doesn't matter which direction it goes in. More communication and more collaboration is needed at this time. And actually, that was the theme of this entire IFS meeting. At every turn, I was hearing from colleagues from Eastern, from Southern, from PSU, from Western, from OSU. It didn't matter from which part of the state. Everybody emphasizing collaboration and consultation. And as we move to transform our system, really working together to do this, rather than what has happened in the past, which has been that each campus has more or less had its own agenda, and it hasn't been as collaborative as it might have been. But now we're in a situation where it's becoming obvious to everyone, absolutely everyone, that we're either going to make this work together or the system will remain broken. And to understand that, not only individually, but as an Oregon community, is crucial to our future. And I saw great hope in that direction in this meeting. And I understand that that's not always been the case at IFS. So that's good news for all of us, and I'd like to end on that very happy note and to thank you all so much for a very productive meeting, passing one policy, and now 2 policies coming before us in April, and then we will also have other policies. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I see that Nathan Tublitz would like to make a comment from the floor. Yes, please. So Nathan Tublitz, as the chair of the IAC, would like to make a motion to add a student to the membership of the IAC. Nathan, would you like to come up and make a statement about that before if you'd like to go to the microphone? Does anybody have any question, or is this a matter for discussion? Anybody have a question about that? Right, it's a notice of motion, but if we want to have a discussion, so, right. I'm sorry, did I say vote? I didn't mean vote, I meant discussion. We can't do a discussion now? No. Okay, fine. Yes. Yes.
I would bring to the Senate's attention, next month, I believe, a request that the Senate create a process by which the faculty at large can evaluate upper-level administrators at this university.
So, notice of motion on the evaluation of upper-level administrators at the university, process for such. And Ben.
I would just like to say that, Frank, if you want to collaborate with students at all, it would be great to have students maybe included in that kind of process. It sounds like an excellent idea.
Okay, and students also to be included. I'm just repeating in case everybody can't hear. Not to be redundant. Right, any other communications from the floor or announcements? No? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstain. Thank you for a great meeting.